Hello friends, this is the sequence of the video, The Horrible Post-Withdrawal Effects of Lexapro. So just to recap, 3 weeks to a month after I took my last pill of Lexapro, I started having pretty heavy post-withdrawal side effects. These can happen to some people that come off antidepressants, namely SSRIs. So the way that manifested on me was this really intense and treatment-resistant insomnia. And eventually the insomnia ended up creating huge bouts of anxiety and depression. This was during the Christmas holiday, and I didn't get to see my therapist during that time, so I was desperate trying to find solutions online and try to find solutions by myself, and nothing was working until I talked to my therapist, and she said that the insomnia that I was having wasn't caused by anxiety. It was more like a mood crisis, so I should get on a mood stabilizer. This is because normally people who have insomnia, normal insomnia, they are very tired during the day and very drained, and I was always pumped up, always energetic all the time. I'm still a bit, but it's getting better thanks to the medication I'm taking. So I asked her if she had seen a case like this before. What was it? What was this mood crisis that I was experiencing? And she said that normally people who have this are bipolar people. That's not scary at all. Thinking that Lexapro or its post-withdrawal triggered some kind of bipolar state that I never had before. And if you see my video going on SSRIs or going on antidepressants the first week, I already had some kind of symptoms that are similar to what bipolar people had. I had a bit of like a hypomanic episode when I first started on Lexapro. And then I looked online and I saw that actually SSRIs can trigger bipolar disorder even in patients who have never been bipolar. I put a link to a study below that shows exactly this. And then I talked to my therapist, my shrink now that I trust more, and she told me that indeed this can happen. So it's not just something that I'm making up or taking out of my hat. It's a thing that can happen. And of course it can be argued that these people who become bipolar by taking SSRIs already had a propensity for the disorder before. But anyway, it wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for the drug. You know, it wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for the drug. It's easy to blame the patient, again, when you have this industry making billions of dollars on the drug and you want to sell it. So it's not very convenient to say, oh, by the way, this drug can cause bipolar disorder. It's a bit like saying, I took some LSD and it triggered a psychotic episode. I didn't, but some people have this. Some people take LSD and it triggers a psychotic episode. And so it's a bit like saying, oh yeah, you had a psychotic episode because already you had a predisposition to have psychosis. Fuck you, you know, if it wasn't for the LSD, you wouldn't have become psychotic. That's like saying, okay, that's like if I push you down the stairs and you break your nose and I say, oh, anyway, you had a predisposition to break your nose already. Well, if you hadn't pushed me down the stairs, I wouldn't have broken my nose. So, this makes me really mad because I took one thing that was presented to me as harmless and doctors prescribe it so easily, and now I have this condition that I don't know what it is, and I'm taking 5 things, 3 of which don't work, and I have to taper them off. I'm doing that right now, and it's really fucking hard. It's even worse than when I had my depressive episode 3 years ago, because one thing is to be depressed. Being depressed is being depressed, but being depressed and not being able to sleep being depressed and being wired all the time, that's a totally different level of crazy. And as I said before, I'm not even sure that Lexapro cured my depression 3 years ago. If I had known this, I would have never taken it. And this is why I'm making this video. Actually, for those of you who are thinking of going on actually any type of antidepressant, think well before you do it. I'm not saying it cannot help in some cases. I'm sure it can help some people. I'm not trying to demonize it. I'm just saying these drugs are dangerous, and for some people, they can be really, really, really dangerous. So I looked for a better shrink, and I looked online, and I saw this woman that had written some articles and also books, and namely one article about the marketing strategies of pharmaceuticals. And I thought, that's my girl. Um, Maybe not girl because she's like 50 years old, so that's my lady. Yeah. And I went to see her, and she said that I was indeed having something that looked like a mixed state, which is something that bipolar people have when they experience symptoms of hypomania, so super wired, super energetic, no sleep, but also depression at the same time. So it's the worst of both worlds. This could happen sometimes also to people as a once in a lifetime episode who have an underlying state of depression. So people who are not bipolar but who are depressed and who experience these symptoms. But there's a small chance that I can become bipolar because these episodes with mixed features, that's how they call it now in the DSM-5, the manual for disorders, mental illnesses. These episodes with mixed features can be red flags that indicate that you can become bipolar in the future. So I really hope I'm not. In both cases, according to her, both of these situations, either being bipolar or just having a once in a lifetime episode, can be triggered by Lexapro. So this is not something, again, this is not something that I'm just making up because I'm feeling like that or because I don't like Lexapro. This is because this is real. This is a real thing. So anyway, the shrink said that this could easily be solved by taking lithium for a couple of months. Lithium, that just makes me so mad because I took this one thing that was supposed to be super common and harmless, which was Lexapro, Escitalopram, and now I have to take this other thing that is 10 times heavier and is supposed to be having horrible side effects or heavy side effects. And yeah, it's a lonely road too. I mean, because for people around me, if you have a burnout, if you have a depression, people can kind of understand, they can kind of relate. But if you say, I'm having a mixed state and I might be bipolar, that's a different level. That's a totally different level. And yeah, it's hard. So I also tried to not take the lithium because I was so traumatized by psych drugs. And I didn't want to get even more involved into even more pills. But yeah, it didn't work. I tried to go on this. I'm still on this group, cognitive behavioral therapy group for insomnia. It helps. If you have regular insomnia, I'm sure it really helps, and it helps also to structure my sleep. But it didn't help with the suicidal ideation that in the meantime became really apparent, and it didn't help with the agitation and didn't help with the depression. I became unable to enjoy anything anymore. Watching a fucking series was impossible because I just wouldn't enjoy it anymore. So I started on the lithium, and I'm also taking a benzo 2 to 3 times a week now when it gets really, really bad. That's also something that I didn't want to take, but the shrink said, you should take it because, we shouldn't demonize benzos so much. Although I'm not gonna take it too much because I'm really afraid to get addicted to it. So eventually I want to taper it off. And yeah, that's my story of what happens. I will maybe make another video on the lithium, my life on lithium, the lithium experience. And if you have a similar story, which I don't know if any, I just feel like I'm super alone in this experience. But if anyone has a similar story, please feel free to share it on the comments below. And because awareness should be raised to SSRIs and its potential dangers. Okay, happy healings.